Ryan Adams here, naturalweightlossmastery.com, veganslimandsustain.com, where we've had over 230 vegans and plant-based dieters since 2020 lose their first 20 plus pounds in as little as 12 weeks on the Vegan Slim and Sustain program. Those are my credentials. This is what I do here. And welcome to this live stream where we're going to be talking all things mindset. One of the biggest mental shifts that I try to drive home to my clients, that I want my clients to go through, is that weight loss, or success rather, with lasting weight loss, is not predicated on motivation, positivity, questions surrounding, Ryan, how can I stay focused? At some points, I'm really focused with my nutrition, other times not so much. It's not even your question of commitment. The key to lasting weight loss from a mental perspective is behavioral change. Changing how you actually conduct yourself is the thing that's going to make or break how permanent weight loss actually is for you. We're all motivated at certain times. We watch a film, we watch one of the Rocky movies, that fires us up. We watch a Tony Robbins video. Motivation, sadly, is an incredibly fleeting thing. Instead, what I want my clients to go through is the internal transformation of habits, beliefs, how they see themselves, so stories surrounding identity, all of these internal mental and emotional aspects that actually change them. It's very cliche, but change them through the process of losing weight. You won't believe the amount of people come to me who have actually had success with weight loss in the past. I don't get a bunch of people reach out to me who it's their first attempt to lose weight. Far from it. It's usually people that have been around the old roundabout, the weight loss merry-go-round. They've tried every diet and detox under the sun, and they've had varying degrees of success with weight loss in the past. But they're coming to me now because they want, excuse all that background noise, by the way, I'm right in the city here, because they want something different. They want something permanent this time. They want something that feels sustainable. I suppose the clue's in the name of the program. I would like to think Vegan, Slim and Sustain. It isn't just a weight loss program. I want to teach my clients how to do this for life. Anyway, these folks, they've been around, the people that come to me, they've been around the weight loss roundabout, likely you have watching this. And so they've had success with it. They know how it works. But, you know, they know the fundamentals of calorie deficit. Many of my clients, before they work with me, they understand the fundamental tenets of plant-based eating. However, what they're looking for help with is with the implementation side of things, actually sticking to this now. They're missing that consistency that really embeds the habits, that creates momentum, rather than this sort of on-off style approach, the yo-yos, the, you know, Monday to Friday dieting, and then the weekends being a nightmare. You create this glass ceiling, the glass ceiling effect. You create this syndrome for yourself whereby you start losing weight in the week and then you mess it up at the weekends. And you might lose weight for a little bit doing that, but there's this inevitable glass ceiling whereby you can't go any further. Maybe you can't get the full 30 pounds you want to lose off at the rate of consistency you're currently, excuse my notifications in the background here, operating at. And so what we're trying to get our clients to do on Vegan, Slim and Sustain is go through behavioral change to whereby stuff doesn't feel forced, anymore. Now, today is going to be about behavioral change, but it's also going to be about changing the way that you think. And I separate that slightly from behavior, because at first, there's a lot of work to do here. You start the new diet and everything is forced. Everything has to feel super intentional. It feels sacrificial. You are actively eating foods that you haven't eaten consistently for a while, and you are actively trying to say no to foods that you have eaten very regularly recently. That takes intentionality. That takes work. That takes mindset battle. There is a tug of war every single day that my clients have to go through in the first couple of weeks of the program. And I set up accountability systems, and I give advice, and we give mental and emotional support to make those things easier. But there's still a lot of work involved. You're still wrestling with your mind constantly in those opening weeks. Why? Because everything is forced. Like I say, it's not natural. You're not doing the thing that you've naturally been doing for some time. It feels inorganic. It feels slightly unfamiliar to you. And it'd be so much easier to just go and grab the cake and the pizza, right? To come home from work and not to get in the kitchen and prepare, spend 10, 15 minutes preparing a healthy tofu stir fry, which isn't even a complicated recipe, but a healthy tofu stir fry. It's much easier to get on the phone to Papa John's or Domino's, right? Jump on Uber Eats. They make it so easy now, so convenient for us. That's how they do it, right? That's how the marketing's done. And so it feels really forced in those earlier weeks. You have to do a lot of thinking. There's a lot of brain power that goes into keeping clients on track in those opening weeks. You've experienced this yourself. The beautiful thing, though, in time is you can pass through that zone where you have to outthink the little demons in your head to negotiate with them. to whereby this becomes natural. And that is a message that I want to ram home in this video here. To anyone watching this, to anyone unsure if they can actually have permanent and lasting success with weight loss, for anyone asking questions like, Ryan, is it always going to be this tough? Does it always feel like a sacrifice? Absolutely not. That doesn't have to be the case for you. You just have to do this with enough repetition and enough force and energy that your default setting changes and you are the person that loves to eat well. You enjoy these healthy, whole food, plant-based meals because you're having them consistently. You have far more positive and empowering thoughts about your own ability to lose weight, about your health and well-being. You take responsibility and you don't blame your mother's supposedly slow metabolism or the state of healthcare in the UK, US, wherever you might be. You actually, or genetics, whatever it might be, you actually take responsibility for yourself and you say, no, I do have the power to change this. Health simply isn't the cards you're dealt, as a lot of people wrongly believe. And when you step up to the plate like that, take the responsibility and actually have a sense of deserving and a sense that, yeah, a confidence, let's say, that even if you've been out of shape for a while, yeah, you know what, maybe I can actually do this. Maybe I can actually get slim. I know I've failed a couple of times in the past, but maybe I can actually do this now. When you actually have that sort of force and energy going forward, you combine that with a little bit of repetition and consistency. It's amazing how quickly that default setting changes, right? The foods that you actually crave change. The positivity in which you think of yourself changes. The bounce back ability that you develop to go and eat something off plan and then snap right back into your diet. I know this is something people really struggle with, right? Once they eat off plan, that slippery slope opens up and it's like, here's the floodgates. What are we going to eat next? And they're off track for a week all of a sudden, right? We can develop and train that resilience and that bounce back ability this is what I do with my clients, to the extent that there's only so far they can go off track. And hand on heart, that's how I feel today. I'm not perfect by any means. I still have cravings. Sometimes I still give into them. But now the difference between Ryan Adams now and of 8, 9, 10 years ago is the bounce back ability is incredible. I will eat a meal off plan and about 50% of the time I'll go, I can make that better at home anyway, with healthier options, with healthier ingredients. You know, take me back to my diet, give me some fruit, give me some, that's too oily for me, that's too rich for me now, I don't like chocolate anymore, right? And this is sincerely the place I've got to where that bounce back ability just snaps you back into place like an elastic band. And that's what you need to develop. And this is the message, again, that I want to round home. I want to let you guys know that this is possible. The questions you have about, oh, motivation, Ryan, it just comes and it goes, what am I going to do? Or, oh, I can stick with this for a while. The problem is you're shooting yourself in the foot because you keep giving up at the critical stage of internal transformation. You keep giving up at the stage where your behavior, to go back to my original point 8 minutes ago, where your behavior is about to change. You give up on the cusp of transformation. You're about to get to the promised land where it all gets so much easier. You're about to walk through that light at the end of the tunnel, and then you quit because someone offers you pizza, or because you feel sad because you had one bad weigh-in. Boo-hoo, right? I know I'm patronizing here, but I'm emphasizing the point. People give up for such trivial reasons when they're on the very cusp of transformation, a transformation that allows the process, ironically, to be so much easier than they've ever experienced before. And I probably sound like a madman to the people watching this right now that have never got to the promised land. They've never even sniffed it. They've never even tasted how much they can actually change and how much easier it is to just stay on track, how much easier it is to say no to the booze, no to the junk food once they've actually been doing this for a while. I probably sound like a lunatic to those people, but trust me, if you've been following me for some time, if you've actioned some of my advice, if you know I'm legitimate in what I do and what I say here, and I'm not just another diet guru on the internet, but I'm actually a coach. If you have any belief in me whatsoever, please trust me when I say that is possible for you. But you need a couple of magical ingredients, and we're going to talk about some of them today. These are the ingredients that I implement into my clients' thinking and their strategies, straight from the horse's mouth right over to you. You're going to need these magical ingredients, and a couple of them are, as I've talked about so far, consistency and repetition to continue actioning good behavior to the point that it becomes familiar and normal and an automatic routine in your mind. It's almost mindless in the same way that you jump into the fridge and eat bad food when you're stressed or bored mindlessly. You can train the good behaviors as well mindlessly. You can train that get up and go, so where you jump out of bed and you want to put your running shoes on and get outside or get to the gym. You can train that in yourself in the same way that you've trained yourself to develop bad habits and associations and patterns of behavior that actually are harmful for your health over time. Rant over, or the first rant over anyway. Let's jump into this. So point being, one of the points being so far, if you can change the way you think, you can change the way you behave, right? But you have to transition from everything being a lot of force and effort at first to it becoming integrated in who you are certainly not speaking literally, in your DNA, let's say, in your sense of self, in your identity, in your habits. Why am I so white, by the way? What's happening with the camera? That's really distracting. I can assure you it's summertime. Does that help? It's summertime here in the UK, so I'm certainly not that white. Consistency, positive energy. These are the ingredients that you need to get through the thinking, to get through the phase where you're so reliant on motivation until this becomes automated, until it becomes habit, until it becomes your new set of behaviors. So we're going to break it down into various, it's semi-unstructured today, but we are going to break this down into categories, and we're going to go through some of the key components of developing a slim body mindset. And the first thing I want to talk about is a very common form of emotional eating. This is one of the biggest reasons why people give up with their healthy eating efforts: stress eating. And here's a little excerpt from my old book, Natural Foods, my first ebook, Natural Foods, The Only Diet You Need. I'm just going to talk about reducing stress here for a brief moment. Stress is a regular part of life and something that everyone experiences. But many people resort to comfort eating as a way of coping. It's probably got something to do with the surge of hunger we experience when we're stressed. Our bodies respond to stress by releasing a hormone called cortisol. Our appetite then increases as our body desperately looks for energy to fight the stress as a response to the cortisol being released. Can you guess what we then start to crave? The highest energy foods we can find, those that provide a big hit of calories. And I think some people on that note make the mistake of thinking that stress eating is entirely emotional. It's not, it's physical, and it's physical to the extent that all emotional eating is physical because emotions are powered by chemical release. Emotions are not just some random thing. They're a response to a chemical release in the body that changes your mood and it changes your state, and you experience perhaps a different or you have a different emotive filter for what you're responding to, the stimulus that the world is throwing at you, okay? And you can have two very different things hit you in your life, two very different bits of news, but depending on the mood you're in prior to receiving that news, you may have a whole different set of feelings. Have you ever experienced this? Anyway, back to our original point here. So there is actually a biochemical element to the stress thing. It's not entirely emotional, but we're categorizing here for ease as emotional eating. And of course, we go to the highest energy foods because we want those calories. So it's not as though you're just a completely weak, flaky, flimsy human being for wanting cookies when you're stressed. It's not just a question of your willpower. There is also a biochemical thing. You are designed, there is part of you that is designed to go and seek something high calorie when you're stressed to provide fuel for the conquest. But of course, modern day life, are we having so many of those conquests anymore? Well, quite evidently not. You just had an argument with your boss or with your spouse, right? It's not necessarily a life, well, it might be, but it's not necessarily, I hope it's not anyway, a life and death situation. So, but there's several points I've made in that little excerpt from my book, but one of them being stress is a very normal part of life. So I'm not going to come on here today, and we are going to talk about reducing stress, but I'm not going to come on here today and pretend that the solution, if you're a stress eater, is to try and eliminate all stress from your life. Of course not. We're going to need to make you resilient to stress when it does happen, but we need to talk about reducing it as well. Let me have a sip, because I'm just for the first 15 minutes. Jade says, thank you. Thank you very much for being here, Jade. Thanks for your attention. So reducing stress then, too much physical and emotional stress can be harmful to health in a number of ways. Amplified food cravings and emotional eating are the most obvious examples as it pertains to weight loss. While stress is a natural feeling that we can all expect to experience, stress management can help us steer clear of the dangers surrounding its negative consequences. Being triggered by stress is all the more likely in our fast-paced, stimulus-filled world. True, isn't it? All the screens, everything going on now, the speed at which we receive news and information now. It's tough, isn't it? There are many stress triggers that can just be thrown in your face versus times gone by, versus what our ancestors would experience. Have we adapted to being able to receive that level of information? Well, of course not. It's very, very new to this. It's the last 10, 20, 15, 30, maximum 50 years that we've been so close to information now, so close to data, so close to news, events, so on and so forth. So a question for us is, how could we avoid some of these triggers? How could we avoid some of these modern day triggers? Do we need to limit our screen time? Maybe watching the news is not so productive. I think a lot of people spend an awful lot of time watching the news when they've got things in their own personal lives to address. So yeah, I suppose that's an action step here. How could you avoid some of the common triggers in modern day life that are creating stress in you? Analyze your life right now. There's some things you can't avoid. The stress related to work, unless you're going to move your job. Stress in family because you've got, commitments and responsibilities to loved ones and whatnot. Those things can't be entirely avoided. You might be able to change some things so they're more manageable, but there are certainly things right now that are sending cortisol through your system. You're feeling volatile and really reactive to, and merely by cutting or lessening that behavior, you could significantly reduce the amount of stress you're experiencing every day. So here's your action step. Make a list of, I suppose I've just summed this up, make a list of the occasions on which you're likely to feel stressed. Workload, relationships, concern for your children. Go deeper. Continued procrastination, right? I talked about my boredom eating at university. Well, this also compounded because not only was I turning to food out of boredom, but I used to get stressed at the fact that I was so useless, frankly put, speaking very bluntly about myself, and I wasn't exercising my potential, and I wasn't trying hard in my studies, and I didn't get a part-time job right at the end of uni, and I could have done that all the way through, and that would have been good for me. It would have helped financially, but it would have also been objectively very, very good for me in many, many ways. And so I got stressed about being bored. Does that make sense? And that just didn't help things either. So go deeper. Think about stress that is caused by procrastination, resentment you have in relationships, poor relationship with your body, all of these things. Ironically, having a poor relationship with your body can actually make you eat more poorly. You would think if you were aware that you didn't like your body, that it would influence you or give you the power to change. Well, sadly, self-sabotage isn't quite that simplistic all the time, but actually it can backfire because that sense of worthiness and deserving, well, you don't quite have it because maybe you haven't been so used to taking care of yourself or prioritizing nourishing yourself in many, many years. So reducing stress in terms of responses, then, it is easy to view stress as being caused by external factors, right? I talked about job, I talked about relationship. These are other people, right? Or other environments, other situations, external, the news, happenings around the world. It's very easy to get bummed out by these things and to consider the causes of stress being all from external influences. But it's often your own attitude and behavior that can contribute to the stress just as much as the external factors can. So try, as it was the case with me, when I became aware that I was boredom eating, that would bum me out further, and I get annoyed at myself for that. Right? So the stress can compile from something that initially wasn't even stress related. And that was all very much internal, based on my own sort of assessment of things, or my own procrastination, my own lack of listening to the needs I had in life and then going out and actually doing things to overcome those. So try keeping a food and a mood diary or journal to start becoming more aware of your stress triggers and their driving forces. Write down the following next time you feel stress. So next time you're aware that you're stressed, write down as follows: what triggered the stress, number one, in the first place. Number two, how you felt as a result of feeling stress. Number three, how you acted in response to the stress. And number four, what you did to actually feel better. What we want to do is normalize stress in your life, reduce it as much as we can, but also acknowledge that and manage expectations in that you're going to get stressed. You're a human being. Life is not easy as an adult, and there will be challenge, but we've got to remove food from the equation. We've got to remove food from being a coping mechanism for that. And let's come on to that. So still on reducing stress here and responding to that. If you have a problem with a friend or a colleague, approach it amicably. Don't let it fester. This is what people do. They get resentful, and that just makes you more stressed, right? That just adds all this emotion to the situation. So actually deal with, socially or work-wise, deal with problems you've got with a friend or a colleague. Obviously do it respectfully, do it amicably, but actually tackle the problem, the cause of the stress, head on. People bury and bury and bury and stuff it down, and it just becomes a monster, and they don't deal with it correctly, and that's when they end up turning to food or other vices, alcohol, etc., to deal with the emotion, because they haven't actually allowed it to guide and inform their behavior on what they ought to do next. If you're feeling stressed, it's likely for a reason, and it's your body saying, we've got something to fix here. This is not a pleasant feeling. We're giving you this chemical cortisol to let you know that this is an unpleasant feeling and that you need to take action. It's heightening our emotion. Let's go and do something about this. So rather than not telling our partner that we don't like how they're treating us right now, not telling our boss that our workload is a little bit too big, or that we didn't like particularly the way they spoke to us, rather than actually dealing with those things respectfully, we just stuff, and food can be part of that equation, part of that coping mechanism. Try not to, this is another point in reducing stress, try not to demand too much of yourself. By aiming for perfection, you set yourself up to feel more stress. Be realistic with what you can actually take on at work, at home, in terms of weight loss. Maybe weight loss is making you even more stressed and you're likely to eat off track. Again, ironically, even though you're trying to work on your weight. And maybe it's because you've set some bizarre expectation of yourself that you ought to be perfect with every single meal for the rest of your life, that you ought to be losing 3 pounds a week like you did in the first week of your journey. Be a little bit more lenient, be a little bit more, it's not even lenient, be a little bit more realistic with your expectations and demands of yourself. And finally, don't merely mask the underlying cause of the stress, as I've alluded to for the last couple of minutes, by turning to food. Embrace and troubleshoot the true problem at hand. How many times on Instagram, my clients will attest to this, how many times have I said to my clients that 9 times out of 10, not always, but significant amount of the time, 9 times out of 10, I'm speaking very anecdotally here, 9 times out of 10, our emotional eating problems are not actually a problem with food itself, but rather a problem in our personal lives. So deal with it. If you can't avoid a stress trigger, change the way you interact with it, right? So I've talked a lot here about trying to reduce stress, trying to tackle problems head on so you are less stressed. Exercise can really help lower your baseline stress as well by doing it frequently. We may touch on that a little bit later. And these are ways to reduce stress. But sometimes stress triggers, you can't avoid them. Maybe you receive bad news, or maybe there's a particular source of stress right now that you can't change, like your current job. Maybe you have to stay there for one reason or another. And so for the next 6 months, it's looking a little bit rocky. It's looking a little bit tricky. What do you do then? You can't avoid that stress trigger. You simply need to change the way you interact with it. Exercise. It was on my next set of notes. I didn't know if it was. Regular exercise can be a powerful stress reliever for many people. Exercise can fire up your production of feel-good endorphins, those neurotransmitters, whilst also distracting you from day-to-day worries. Yeah, it just gives your mind a break from processing all the stuff that's causing you stress and worry anyway. Exercise can also be a preventative measure, though. So yeah, I just mentioned this. Moving your body regularly can increase self-confidence, help you relax, and improve your sleep. So again, when it comes to the effect of exercise on stress, you can use exercise as a response to feeling stress, to take your mind off it, to go and release that bundle of emotion that you've got. But you also can lower your baseline level of stress every day, which is going to make you less spiky and volatile to stress when it comes anyway, by seeing exercise as a preventative measure, again, to increase mood throughout the day anyway, help you relax, improve sleep, etc., etc. All of these things have been shown to lower stress, increase self-confidence. So yeah, if you're doing a regular exercise anyway, this isn't necessarily something you need to change. You should be already tapping into those stress relieving benefits that exercise can give you. Now, reducing stress via food, this is an interesting one. Certain nutrients can actually help lower stress levels. They've been proven to, and help us feel more relaxed each time we eat. B vitamins in particular, omega-3s, protein, calcium, zinc, magnesium, and complex carbohydrates are just some of the nutrients and food groups that can help support our mood. Sweet potatoes, make a note of this, bananas, leafy greens, seeds, lentils, and berries are all examples of foods that are crammed with mood-regulating nutrients. So once more, sweet potatoes, and there are a list of others, but these particularly rich in mood-boosting nutrients: sweet potatoes, bananas, leafy greens, lentils, and berries. These are foods that my clients just so happen to be eating very regularly anyway. They're a huge part of this diet. Now, for more on this, you can actually check out Dr. Neil Barnard's book, Power Foods, for the Brain. So for more information on the relationship between food and mood, that's Power Foods for the Brain, highly recommended by Dr. Neil Barnard. You guys know I like his stuff. I recommend his stuff a lot. But I wanted to include, that little bit on how food can actually help relieve stress, because yeah, diet will lower stress as well by having a decent diet, by taking in good nutrients, and then the after effects of eating a good diet in terms of weight management, in terms of hormonal, metabolic health, etc., sleep, rest, recovery, etc., lowering inflammation. All of that stuff then can lower stress as well. So there is just this what's the best metaphor for this? I don't know, but there's a huge ripple effect to just eating well in terms of stress management. Other tips for reducing stress then, beyond exercise, beyond food, reducing caffeine intake, that can be a helpful one. Applying some perspectives to situations as well. Thinking about other struggles you've had in the past, thinking about other people's struggles, and then almost as a result, sort of trivializing your own. Spending time with friends and family, really obvious one. The comfort, the good feeling, the love, the nostalgia, nostalgia is not the right word, the familiarity, the closeness, the intimacy, all of those things can help take away the stress and relieve you in the moment. Laughing, really, really good antidote to stress. Spend time in nature, get present to the moment, mindfulness, so you can practice things like meditation. Learning to say no, I'm not going to do this assignment, boss. Look, there's a lot on my plate right now. I really want to help you out with this. But listen, is there something we can do here? I don't think I can take this on right now. I'm going to burst here if I add any more workload. Look, I want to help you with this, but is there someone else we can do? Is there someone else that can assist with this? Or can we push this later down the line so I don't have to manage it right now with my workload? Learn to say no to things. Stop adding extra stress to your life when your plate is already full. And finally, stop procrastinating, which was a personal one for me, right? The stress that you can get from your own inaction can entirely make things worse. Now on to food and positive thinking. I like this idea. Don't obsess over what you can't eat. Think about nourishing foods that are finally giving yourself permission to enjoy. And this is the next mental shift that I want to take you guys through today. You remember towards the start, those that have been here from the start, do you remember towards the start, I talked about, I can see, it's Michelle. Hey, Michelle, lovely to hear from you. It's a former client of mine. I've reached the promised land. There we are. Thanks to you and your program, 26 pounds down, and it feels incredible. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you to you, Michelle. I appreciate your comment, but thank you to you. You're the one that put in the hard work, so well done to you. That's really awesome to hear. And that's a good couple of pounds since we actually finished, if memory serves. So glad to hear that you're still pushing after the program. Well done to you. But yeah, this is the next mental shift I want to take you through. Don't obsess over what you can't eat. Think about all the nourishing foods that you're finally giving yourself permission to enjoy. And this isn't actually the mindset shift itself. It's just one example of a change in thinking, the mindset shift that I want to walk you through, the paradigm shift. And remember towards the start, I was talking about things being forced. You have to force your way through the early stages of weight loss to actually change, to actually develop a new relationship with food, to build habits, and then it becomes automated. Then it becomes very, very easy indeed after that, because you've actually changed your behavior rather than it feeling really forced all the time and sacrificial. This is the next point, right? It's little reframes like, I must work out. I have to do exercise too. I get to move my body today. I have to eat this meal. Sorry, I can't come out with you for pizza. I have to eat this meal. No, I'm actually choosing not to have pizza. I'm choosing, right? Responsibility, own agency. I'm choosing not to have the pizza because I want something that's going to nourish and fuel my body and make me feel good. Boom. Do you see the difference? I know this stuff is a little bit cheeseball, but these are the affirmations that you need in the early stages. And again, then it becomes automated. And this is the way, sincerely, I feel right now when I eat a good meal and I feel really good. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I had half a watermelon earlier. There's nothing else in the world I wanted. People walking around my city eating ice creams earlier on in this lovely weather. We've finally got some lovely weather here. People eating ice creams everywhere. I shot home after the gym because I wanted my watermelon before my coaching call, right? And that was, it took no effort. It took no effort to not go and grab an ice cream. It was easy because I wanted my watermelon. And that is what you can expect. But initially, it's hard work because you're changing your habits. You're used to the ice cream and you might not be used to the watermelon. So don't obsess. And this is the reframe. Don't obsess over what you can't eat. You're not missing out anymore. You're not sacrificing. That's not the way to frame it. You are now choosing to take care of yourself. You're now choosing to nourish yourself. It's not, I have to go to the gym. I must do exercise. It's that I get to. I actually want to. It feels good to. You see the difference? It's a huge, huge difference. Might sound subtle, but it's a huge, huge difference. Appreciate how good it is to actually feel in control of your mood and attitude towards these things, right? A lot of people, they act as though weight loss is taking away from something, right? That they are giving up something, but to a degree, that is true. And I can't really reframe out of that. There's to a degree where the sacrifice is required, yes, but it isn't a productive way to always think about it when you're new to this. You have to reframe this as, no, I want a slim, healthy, fit body. I want to feel amazing. So it's super worthwhile to do all these things. I actually am choosing to lose weight, so I want to do these things. Not opting to lose weight because you're desperate to look good, but actually choosing to lose weight, yes, because you want to look good, but you also want to feel incredible about yourself. You want to improve your relationship with food. You want to stop that habit of feeling utterly powerless to food, like it's got a hold over you. And that is such a powerful and encapsulating motive and mission that all of the stuff that's required, all of the work that's required to actually get there is so worth it. And you can actually marry well with it and actually embrace it and enjoy. Yeah, I love my rice and beans. Even if you're sort of faking it till you make it with statements like that. But no, I actually want to move. I actually want to work out. I'm not always in the mood for it, but I can't wait to move my body. I can't wait to feel good once the workout is done. That's another way you could reframe it. And you are then taking control and the responsibility of your mood. You're taking the agency rather than weight loss being this demanding thing that you must do. And it's actually sucking energy and positivity from your life. You take control and you say, no, I want to do this. It's on my terms. I don't want that pizza right now because I'm fueling myself. I could go on about this all day. Let's move on. Next point. And this moves us on to affirmations very nicely, which we've touched on. Actually, I've sort of explained this already just on my rant. I've already gone into my next couple of points here for the next few notes, but a point I say here in my notes is stop being your own worst enemy. Think carefully about any inner dialogue and self-talk. And I had a conversation with a client recently, a very long-term client of mine. They've been working with me for a year or so now, just under a year. And I said to the client on our call, amongst other things, I said, it's really wonderful how less defeatist you are. When we first started, you were labeling yourself as the emotional eater, as the person that always messes up weight loss, as the person that can diet for a while, but inevitably will screw it up. And just to see how far you've come in, the positivity with which you now speak to yourself, because you've developed a little bit of trust, a little bit of confidence in your ability to actually stay consistent and actually consistently lose weight week on week, month on month, albeit not perfect every single day or every single meal, overall, hugely moving in the right direction. And now just naturally and organically over time, destroying that defeatist mindset that you once had. And that's what I was pointing out to her. You've got to think so carefully about the things that hold you back. The I'm a chocoholic, I can't live without wine. Pretty much every conversation I have with a new client, they will say 5 to 10 self-defeating comments in the opening 15 minutes of the conversation when we're talking a little bit about their history and recent successes and failures with weight loss. I will hear 5 to 10 very disempowering beliefs they've got about themselves, putting themselves into a box and saying, Ryan, I'm the person that always does this. Ryan, I'm the person that always binges. And it might be true, so I understand why they have that thinking about themselves. But I just want to be like, stop. You've already lost because you're setting up a script through this sort of imagined story of yourself, rightly or wrongly, as to whether that story should or should not exist. We want to let it go now, and we want to move on from the labels and the identities that you've placed on yourself based on failures of the past, because we're not going to create a situation whereby you think failure is possible now. We're not even going to entertain the possibility. So we need you to believe you actually can change and you can write a different story for yourself. So just think carefully, bottom line, about the inner dialogue, your self-talk. Try and catch those limiting beliefs before they hit in. I'm always the person. No, you're not. I don't really like exercise. What do you mean you don't like exercise? Have you tried? When was the last time you did actually do some exercise? Let's cut this thinking out and let's try and create some new stories around this stuff. So I've already covered this, but you could reframe things like, I don't have time to work out, to I will make time. I control my schedule and working out is important to me. I've got these new goals and I want to work out now. I know it's good for me. That's so much more powerful than I don't have time to work out. I don't have energy to work out. I'm too unfit. I can't work out. Reframe I can't lose weight to I can lose weight. I'm already doing this right now. The scale is moving. Nothing will stop me now. Right? Weight loss is impossible. I reframe it to, I used to think weight loss was impossible, but this time I'm stepping forward with urgency, with positivity, and I really believe I can do this. And I'm going to let my results enhance that feeling. I've got a little bit of doubt, a little bit of caution because I failed in the past, but as soon as I see that scale drop, I know I'm going to feel good. I know I'm going to start to believe I can actually do this. Truly believe that you are deserving of a happy, healthy life, and try and adjust any thinking that doesn't conform with that. Be your own dictator with your brain. Cut out any harmful thinking. When negative thinking happens, negative results follow. Something to make a note of. It's not particularly profound, but when negative thinking happens, negative results will follow. More affirmations then very quickly before we move on. I am discovering delicious new foods that make me feel healthier. I'm not losing anything by not having pizza, by not going out to eat as many times, by not having cake with you on your birthday. Instead, here's the reframe. I'm discovering delicious new foods that make me feel healthier. I am grateful to have a body capable of exercising. Not, I hate exercise, I feel so unfit. No, I am grateful to still have a body that's capable of exercising. I'm not a pro yet. I'm not an athlete, but at least I can give this a shot. My body is still in a state where I can give this a go. I've got a second chance. I am surrounded by people who encourage and support me. They might not eat how I want to eat. They might not get the whole vegan thing, but I do have at least some cheerleaders around me, some people who are genuinely on my team, or I have a coach or a personal trainer that's singing my praises, that's cheering me on. After a hard workout, I feel incredibly proud of my accomplishment. It feels awesome. Not, and you see it in people's spirit, their body language. Oh, I've got to work out. Oh, no, I have to go to the gym. Yeah, but think about how amazing it's going to feel once that workout is done, once you've crushed it, once you've hit those personal bests, once you've set your new, 5K time running, or you've lifted a new heavy weight in the gym. Oh, you're going to feel just awesome about yourself. And future pace like that, and it's going to help you channel the energy to go and actually do the workout rather than this, oh, I can't believe I have to work out again. Oh, my coach wants me. I've got to go to the gym again. You've got to go to the gym for what? For what? Because it's like, when you say it like that, oh, I've got to go to the gym. It's like, who for? But when you actually want to go to the gym, you're not always in the mood, but when you actually desire the workout and you welcome it and you embrace the pain and the struggle with it, and you think about how awesome it's going to feel once that workout is done and the achievement and the fulfillment you get from it, you're doing it for you then, aren't you? Versus, oh, I've got to work out. What for? What for? Why are your goals draining you? They should lift you up. If you really want this, it should be a no-brainer. I let go of all urges to criticize my body. Oh, I'm fat. Oh, I hate the way I look. Oh, I'm disgusted by myself. This is how, it sounds tough, but this is how people speak to themselves. This is how people speak to themselves. I let go of all urges I have to criticize my body. That's the reframe. I allow myself to acknowledge that I am worthy of a slim and healthy body. I don't always feel like it, but I allow myself to recognize that I'm worthy of it. So pause. And this is a nice segue. Think about this. Do you truly, and I'm making that noise because there's going to be tumbleweeds at home. This is a heavy one. When I say this, there's going to be silence in people's minds. Do you truly feel deserving of weight loss and health success? Do you truly feel deserving of weight loss and health success? Now, I asked this, I believe, on my Instagram, maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago. I did a little poll and I said, do you truly feel deserving of weight loss and health success? And that poll shocked me. That poll suggested that 90% of the people who engaged with the poll did truly feel deserving of health and weight loss success, and 10% didn't. Now, I know very, very well that poll is not actually representative of my audience and my clients. Not at all, because when I've polled this in the past, and when I've talked about this on YouTube, or based on the conversations I have, it's more like 50-50. So I don't know what was happening on Instagram that day. People were feeling very, very ambitious, or perhaps the people that didn't feel undeserving simply didn't participate in the poll, because why would they want to admit that? You could argue that might have made a little swing as well. But I think there is a very good chance that 40 to 50% of the people watching this live stream right now do not actually in their heart believe or feel deserving or worthy of a slim and healthy body. And if you've been overweight for some time, not to sound incredibly patronizing here, but if you've been overweight for some time, why on earth would you feel deserving? Why would you? Like, it makes sense when people tell me that they don't feel deserving of success with weight loss, or it feels impossible for them. I don't go, what's wrong with you? Why don't you believe in yourself? That's not my response. My response is, oh, that makes sense. Tell me why. Why is that the case? Tell me more about your weight loss history or your struggles with this in the past. And 9 times out of 10, it makes perfect sense as to why someone doesn't actually believe in themselves anymore and doesn't feel deserving. It's usually informed by results. Informed by failures, informed by the fact they gained weight for many years and was in denial of it, or just didn't face it, or didn't want to face it, or perhaps got laughed at or negative attention, bullied for being overweight. And that just seeps into their psyche and becomes a limiting belief for themselves. I talked earlier about glass ceiling syndrome, people taking stories and beliefs and clinging onto them as a reason not to change. Some of this stuff is deep, heavy stuff. But that's my question to you right now listening to this. Do you truly feel deserving of weight loss and health success? Erin's here. Hi, Erin. Thanks for being here. It helps me a lot to keep the reasons why I want to change in my mind to help me make better choices instead of following old habits that got me to a bad place I'm in. Yeah, amen to that. And I suppose this is one of those things that's so obvious that it actually feels condescending to tell people, but it's really true. Keep remembering or keep in mind why you're actually doing this. And people will listen to this and they'll go, duh, but people dispose of their motivations immediately when someone offers them ice cream, immediately when they're a little bit bored or stressed. People are a feather in the wind, and they can go from literally feeling fired up about finally losing weight, about finally getting back in the gym, about finally doing some exercise. They can go from within a couple of hours from being fired up, days or even hours, even minutes from being fired up to, oh, I weighed myself today and I haven't lost weight yet. Right, you know, whether that assessment is appropriate or not. Some people, they just weigh themselves once and decide they haven't lost weight, as if one weigh-in is going to show that, with the role that fluctuations play. It's a nightmare. But, oh, I've had a bad weigh-in, or, oh, I had an argument with my boss. What, so you're going to just discard what you said 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago, 2 days ago, that you're really committed, that you're really fired up right now? I see this every January. We see this every January, right? And so people are a feather in the wind. They are willing to drop their motives and concede and give up just for a little bit. Calories, a little bit of shug, a little bit of refined sugar. That's what sugar is. That's shug is what I call sugar, by the way. Refined sugar, a little bit of artificial stuff, a few chemicals in the food. People, all the fat, people give it up for a bit of junk food, for 2 minutes of taste. And then just crap feelings after that, where they feel guilty and metabolically digesting that food, they feel awful, right? People will do that just for a bit of a pleasure hit. So I think Erin is totally right here. And although it might sound, sorry to call your point obvious, Erin, although it might sound like a very obvious, commonplace thing to say, this is something, what Erin has said here is something people do not do. They just discard their reasons for doing this instantly, and so easily, so flaky people are. And you're going to need a little bit more strength. So do you deserve success is my next question to you. Do you deserve success? If you've been overweight for some time, as I just said, the very thought of being slim might be so far outside your comprehension that you no longer feel it's possible. This feeling can then be further amplified by past failures and guilt around past failures. Well, even when I had a coach before, it didn't really work. So why would I assume I can actually lose weight now without a coach, right? Or with another coach? And this can kind of give you the sense that you're not really entitled to reach your goals, that it's really not meant to be for you. And ultimately, I think there are exceptions to this rule, but I am a believer, not to think of myself as a philosopher or to say anything particularly profound here that isn't weight loss related, but I have generally speaking found that in life, you ultimately, not all the time, but you ultimately, broadly speaking, get what you deserve. Or rather, let's change that. Get what you believe you deserve. Get what you feel entitled to from the world, generally. So again, on this question of do you deserve success, self-sabotage, we haven't talked about that, or we have briefly talked about that today. Self-sabotage might feel unintentional, but it could be a result of this feeling that you're undeserving or unworthy of weight loss. If you have a bias towards not deserving a healthy body, you might well find ways to deny yourself that result. To deny yourself that outcome. So you might be more easy to succumb to the cravings, to skip the workouts, if you have this narrative running in your head that I don't really deserve this, that I've always been overweight, why should I have this? By feeling undeserving, you can create a resistance to any positive and meaningful change. You can step forward not with 100% conviction. I've seen this with people that feel unworthy of weight loss, or similarly that weight loss is impossible, because they're not necessarily the same thing. But either of those, I've seen people, they can only channel like 80 to 90% conviction. They are never fully with it. They are never fully throwing themselves, immersing themselves in the process, because this resistance they've got just it just allows them to go off plan a little bit more often, because they have this sort of underlying feeling of, well, it's not possible for me anyway, or even though I want to lose weight, maybe I don't always feel that deserving of it. And it just creates that room for doubt, just creates a couple more slip-ups every single week than if they didn't have that, or if they had a more productive sort of reframed thought around deserving weight loss. I've skipped ahead in my notes here, sorry folks. Those who have lasting weight loss success don't say, I'm not sure if I deserve this. They don't say that. They believe that this is possible. And they acknowledge that their past sort of informs their level of self-belief. But they are willing to see that there could be something different happening this time, that they can create a new story for themselves. And just because they've messed up in the past, that doesn't mean that that has to be it for them now. That doesn't mean that's the cards they're dealt and it's game over. So how can you start feeling worthy then? This one is tricky, admittedly, but a couple of pieces of advice on this. Act first and worthiness will follow. Your self-esteem and feeling of entitlement to this process will grow as you experience small victories. When you see the scales start to drop, when you start counting up the days you've been on track. Oh, I've done 5 days on track now. That's the first time, that's the longest I've done in a year or so. Oh, now I've done 7 days. Oh, I've done 2 weeks without any slip-ups here. I haven't had alcohol for a month here. It's been a while since I've done that. Those things, they are feedback systems that start allowing you to see that you do actually keep your promises and you are actually capable of keeping your promises. And this further lifts your self-esteem, your feeling of confidence, your feeling of self-trust in this process. Those small victories can really build the momentum that makes you start to feel like you do actually belong in a slim and healthy body. Next point, explore. So still on this feeling of how to develop a sense of worthiness. Well, firstly, if you haven't done it already, explore why you don't feel worthy. Story and narratives from the past. Get clear on these issues so you can later let them go. Don't just bury this stuff. Don't just say to yourself, "Oh, I failed a couple," or what am I trying to say here? Don't bury stuff, but people don't. I was about to make a point that actually, I was about to say people do this and people don't actually do that. So that's why I'm questioning. I'm thinking, is that actually true? Before you open your gob, Brian, and you say something, have you actually noticed that? And I haven't. So ignore what I was about to say there. But yeah, look through your stories and narratives from the past. Oh, okay. Once you start to thread things together and start saying, okay, well, I don't really feel like I do deserve weight loss. Well, why is that? Well, probably because I tried this last year and I did this 3 years ago and it didn't really work. Or, well, I've always been overweight, so, oh, I'm worried about the attention I might get when I lose weight, the attention I might get from men when I lose weight. Women will say this to me. You have to actually start stringing these things together. Realize now why you don't actually feel deserving. Explore that. And then, and this is point number 2 on this, forgive yourself from past mistakes. Let go of negative comments people gave to you or negative experiences you had when you were overweight that have put you in a box to whereby you now can't change it. Let go of those things so you can actually move forward now without guilt, move forward without that sense of undeserving. Next point. This is I'm kind of slightly all over the shop here. I think that's all we're going to do on deserving and worthiness today. I've actually spent more time on it than I wanted to, but hopefully it was useful. Should we do this bit? Food as a coping mechanism. Yeah, let's do this. This is important. Use of food as an emotional tool, we spoke about this with stress eating 20 minutes ago, can prevent you from staying consistent with healthy eating. This is a huge barrier for lasting weight loss success. Question, is your first impulse to open the fridge when you're feeling low, bored, or anxious? I used that example earlier on. When you're feeling stressed or bored or low, anxious, lonely, is that your first impulse to go to the fridge? If it is, you are likely using food as a coping mechanism. I'm not talking about doing this every now and again. I'm not talking about on the 10 occasions where you feel one of these emotions that you jump into the fridge. People watching this, you will know if you use food to cope as a coping mechanism, because this will happen really, really often. It'll be your first impulse. I've got to eat. I've got to eat. Any emotion you experience, I've got to eat. That's how you know you've got a problem. That's how you know you're an emotional eater. That's how you know you're using food as a coping mechanism. Many people use food to soothe or stuff down negative emotions, and also unsuccessfully as well, I would add, because the root cause of the problem isn't actually addressed. That's why I say unsuccessfully. Let's talk about the emotional eating cycle very quickly. Do I have an infographic for this? No, it's not that. Do I have an info? Bear with me, folks. I may even have an infographic to put the emotional eating cycle up on the screen. The old screeny, do I? I don't think I do. I don't think I do. But there is a way around it. Here we go. Bear with me, folks, because I do actually want to. This would be better if you can actually have a visual for what I'm about to walk you through. And I talked about this briefly in my last live stream, but let's do it a little bit more in depth here. So let's see. Can I copy and paste this from one of my lectures? Yes, I can. Now, how can I upload this? Can I do this? Bear with me. It's going to be worth it. I promise you that. Let's see. 49 minutes. Oh my goodness. I said I was going to do this in about 40, and we're probably only halfway through. Let's see. Is this going to work? Oh, you've lost me, but we're cooking with gas. Here we go. So the emotional eating cycle. Step 1, something causes you to be emotionally triggered. Right, hold on. Let me disappear for a second. You know, just a moment ago when I said, is it your first impulse? Is it your first impulse to go to the fridge every time you experience loneliness, boredom, blah, 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 blah. So here we go. Back to with that in mind. Step 1, something causes you to be emotionally triggered. You start thinking about food. Step 2, you feel an overwhelming urge to eat, the itch that you need to scratch. Step 3, then you eat something unhealthy and or way more than you should. And I stress unhealthy here. I have seen stress eaters that will eat healthy food in large quantities, but 9 times out of 10, they go for something else. And then step number 4, you then, after you've actually consumed your food, you actually feel guilty and powerless about your consumption of the food. It's just a horrible, horrible cycle. It's a horrible cycle that just gets worse with each step you go through. And I think, actually, I'm not done with this. And I think you can't, can you see my mouse here? No, you can't. It's only on my screen. What am I talking about? I just wanted to highlight some stuff. But this is where this is so powerful. And this is why this is a cycle. And I don't just call it a pattern of behavior. I actually call it a cycle because it all stems back to step 1 again. So step number 1, you feel the triggering question, stress, boredom, loneliness. Step 2, you feel an overwhelming urge to eat. Why do you feel an overwhelming urge to eat? Because you've trained that behavior previously. Because you have taught yourself through association that the way to solve, even though it doesn't work, the way to solve or to distract from the stress, the boredom, whatever the feeling is to eat. And you've done that because you've learned that behavior over the last 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, however long you've been eating out of emotion. Does that make sense? So even though it doesn't actually solve the problem, your brain is used to the familiar feeling of eating food or certain foods when you feel stressed or bored or lonely. Or do you get what I mean? So, or when you feel you need a reward or a pick-me-up, that's another form of emotional eating. You have associated food with that process wrongly, but that's what you've done. You've trained that behavior. So something causes you to be triggered. Step 2, you feel an overwhelming urge to eat because your brain recognizes, oh, when I experienced this emotion before, I ate. Okay, so let's try that. Let's throw some mud at the wall and let's try and eat now. So step 3, then you eat something unhealthy and or way more than you should. And this then goes to step 4. You not only then have the pitiful feeling of the actual emotion, the difficult emotion that you were struggling to deal with in the first place that you actually haven't solved, you then compound this and you feel even worse because you feel guilty. You feel guilty for what you've just done because you've got these healthy eating aims, you've got these weight loss efforts, and you've just sabotaged them by eating something off plan. And then you also subcommunicate to yourself, and this is the crucial bit, you subcommunicate to yourself that you are the person that is powerless to food, that you are the person that goes through this cycle, and it strengthens the cycle. It's almost like each time you go through it, it becomes more powerful and more inevitable the next time. So that's why I call it cycle and not just a chain of behavior. It links all back to step 1, because the next time you're emotionally triggered, you already go into it with, on some subconscious level, feeling you're the person powerless to food. So it just becomes this inevitable script that you feel the more you emotionally eat, you have less and less and less agency and power over actually stopping it. I've just realized I've been off the screen the whole time. You've just been looking at that graphic and hearing me ranting and missing all of my Jim Carrey, alrighty then, my Jim Carrey expressions here. I'm like angry Jim Carrey when I talk about this stuff. And you just feed back into that cycle. It feels more powerless. It's just on repeat and on repeat and on repeat. And it feels more inevitable and hard to stop because each time you go through it, you can't deny that you've gone through it again. You can't deny that you've done it again. You cement food as the way of dealing with it wrongly. but you cement that in as part of the process, as familiar with the process. The feelings of guilt and powerlessness, that then feeds back in. And so the next time you feel weak to giving into food, you've already got a story subconsciously or very consciously that you're the person that emotionally eats, that you're the person. And it's just a snowball. It's a massive snowball that feels so hard to stop. I've lost my notes here. Where am I? Because I just go on these rants all the time. Okay, let's pick up here. Realize now, point number 2, realize now that it's not the emotional upset that is the problem. It's not that original trigger. It's not the boredom. It's not the stress that's the problem. It's your inability to deal with it that causes these coping tools, food as a coping tool, to actually emerge. As soon as we treat these things, and when I say these things, these feelings, like a fire that needs to be put out, oh, I'm bored, oh, I'm stressed. This is what people do. They react like a fire. It's a fire. That's when people, they just jump to food so quickly, so mindlessly, immediately. And we rationalize acting fast because it's a difficult feeling to deal with. We want to stop that feeling, even if it goes against our best laid plans. Like, you have to stop treating food like a fire that needs to be put out. It's not the emotional distress itself that is harming your health. It's not the fact you were bored or stressed. Get over it. That's adult life. Simply put, get over it. You don't need to hear that from a young whippersnapper like me. I'm probably younger than you watching this right now. You don't need to hear that from me. But if you've got a negative feeling, boo-hoo. Who cares? That's adult life. Get over it and get on with it. But it's the emotional distress that leads to the eating. But I want to reframe this in your mind right now as, we need to create a boundary between the two. We need you to be able to actually experience emotional distress and take it like a punch to the face, and just take it and just accept it. And instead of going, fire, what am I going to do? Throw on some water. In other words, stuff some food down. No, absolutely not. Fire. Call the fire brigade. Hey, this is not how you'd call the fire brigade, but hey, there's a fire in my apartment. Close the door on it. Get everyone out safely, calmly. Walk out of the apartment, walk out your house, calmly, no panic, right? They're two very different frequencies. There's different cadence to those reactions to things, okay? And I need you to start creating that separation if you want to get over this, if you want to stop using food emotionally, stop using food as a coping mechanism. So again, it's not the emotional distress that's harming your health. It's the chain of behaviors that you've trained yourself into that come as a result of that emotional distress. It's the actions that you justify, right, in order to deal with the distress, to cope with the stress, that actually hold you back from weight loss success. So the solution, again, is not to eliminate, and we talked about this with stress earlier on, the solution right at the start, the solution is not to eliminate negative feelings altogether, because that's impossible anyway, but rather to manage your strategy for when these emotions arise, so you don't just fall into this inevitable emotional eating cycle. Saying no is really powerful. People find it hard, but saying no is really powerful. The more you don't give in to using food to cope, the more you say no, the easier it becomes to continue saying no. So let's put our slide back up once more. Each time you go around and each time you say yes to eating food, step 1, triggered. Step 2, feel like eating. Step 3, then actually going to eat. You are saying yes, aren't you, to the craving? You are saying yes to the urge to eat, the desire to eat. That actually makes it easier to say yes again next time, because you are laying that pattern of behavior in your brain, okay? Saying no in the adverse way, saying no is really powerful. When you interrupt that pattern, that inevitability that you're going to eat by saying, no, I'm not doing it this time. Not this time, not today, absolutely not. Not here and now, we're not doing this anymore. I'm done, it's over. The more you start saying that, when you first say that, it won't have anywhere near as much conviction as I've just said it with, as much force as I've just said it with. It will be meek and you'll feel a little bit weak and it will feel unnatural. But as you keep saying no, they add up. And again, the snowball then goes the other way. And do you remember 5 minutes ago when I talked about the inevitability of the cycle? The more you go through that cycle, the more it feels inevitable. The more you say no to the cycle, the more it breaks down. And the easier it feels to actually continue saying no. The more you feel like, oh, my emotions don't have to automatically lead to eating. I can separate mood from action. I can make them different things. And I don't just have to give in every time I feel bad or every time I feel a certain way. So yes, dealing with food as a coping mechanism, then you must set clear rules and boundaries so that you know when your emotional mind is rationalizing coping mechanisms. That's hard to do. One of your weaknesses of the past might have been, so to explain this further, one of your weaknesses of the past might have been Ice cream, that's the Ben & Jerry's for me, as many of you know, so that's quite apt. As a result, you might say to yourself, no ice cream for the next week. You're going to take it out of the equation. You're going to stop rationalizing it as a coping mechanism, and you're going to give yourself a clear rule and a boundary to not use food to cope. So, okay, no ice cream for the next week. Now listen out, with this in mind, for the rationalizations that you get during times of emotional distress. So think about when you're next bored or stressed or lonely. Listen to the inner dialogue. Listen to the self-talk again. Okay, I had an argument with my boss. He was so rude. The only way to cope, give me the ice cream. Hand me the drink, right? People, it's very cliched, but people do this stuff, right? Every time they're stressed or every time they've had an argument, oh, let's grab a drink. Let's go for a drink. Let's take the edge off with a drink, right? You have to make a note when they're happening of these rationalizations in the moment. And you do this by setting clear rules and boundaries. So when you've said to yourself, no ice cream for a week, when you next think about ice cream, you think, oh, yeah, but I made that ice cream rule, right? You're bringing awareness and consciousness and intentionality to it, rather than just saying to yourself, I'm going to try not to emotionally eat. Try and actually try and create some rules around your usual coping mechanism. So say, I'm going to have no alcohol for this month. And then you take away alcohol as the option. So the next time you think about alcohol, you've got a conflict because you go, oh, yeah, but I said I was not going to do alcohol, right? All of these little things, it's not a guarantee that you won't drink. Just saying to yourself, oh, I'm not going to have alcohol for the next week. That's not a guarantee that you won't drink. But it means when you have the thought of, I want some alcohol, it means you've got something that challenges it. You've at least got some barrier before you actually start drinking. You've got some barrier before you start eating ice cream. If you say no ice cream for a week and then 3 days down the line, you start thinking about ice cream when you're emotional one day, well, you're going to have that conflict of interest, hopefully. You're going to go, oh, yeah, but I said I wasn't going to have ice cream. There's at least something there that holds your feet to the fire. There's something that stops you immediately having the ice cream. It's not a guarantee, but I think setting clear rules and boundaries, eliminating certain options as a coping mechanism, this is a really, really helpful way to stop rationalizing food or other vices as a coping mechanism. And on this note, write this down. This is huge. And this is going to string together a lot of what we've talked about on the emotional stuff so far today. Write this down. External things can't fix internal problems. Comfort food, alcohol, by extension, money, a new girlfriend, moving home, a new car, vacations, these will not fix internal problems. So if you are struggling with emotional eating right now, if you are struggling with using food, like we've just talked about, as a coping mechanism, ask yourself, is there something wrong in my life right now? Are there things I actually need to fix? Are there things I'm procrastinating on? Are there things I need to action? Is this external? Are there thoughts and beliefs and bad habits that I have that actually I'm chasing, comfort food, or I'm chasing money, or I'm chasing whatever vice or some new object in order to sort of mask an unhappiness with myself, a lack of sense of achievement? I mean, again, this is really heavy stuff, but keep in mind, external things can't fix internal problems. And the more you stop, this is the brilliant thing about it. This is going to improve every area of your life. We're not just talking about weight loss and healthy eating today. This is going to improve every area of your life, because the more you can stop emotionally eating, the more you can actually address the things that are causing the emotional distress in the first instance. Because maybe there's a trend there. Maybe there's stuff that's regularly happening to you that leaves you feeling stressed or bored or lonely. And you can actually just fix those things. If you're lonely, maybe you need a partner. Maybe you need more friends. Food isn't the answer, but it's only when you stop eating food and stop letting it, or letting the illusion that it fixes the loneliness, when you stop engaging in the behavior of that, stop sort of allowing the illusion to happen, to allow food to cast a magic spell on you to whereby you think it's the answer to the loneliness. You train yourself to think it's the answer to the loneliness. Once you've done that, you can actually realize, oh, I am lonely and I should probably do X, Y, and Z about it. Once you take out emotional eating, you see what your other options are to actually fix the problems you have in life. Food is not entertainment. Very quickly on this, food should be framed as something to nourish and fuel. This is so huge, and I think I talked about this in the live stream. It's not here to entertain, it's not here to comfort, it's not here to numb, it's not here to soothe. This is how you stop dealing with it as a coping mechanism. You take it off its proverbial pedestal as something that's there for pleasure or for entertainment, or again to soothe and stuff, and you start seeing it as something that's there for your nourishment, for nutrients, for fuel, for energy. This doesn't mean, of course, that we can't enjoy our food. I appreciate when I start talking about food in this manner, it's like, oh, you've just got to eat bland stuff. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy food, but first and foremost, it must be treated as something to power the body and make us feel great. It is there as a function of your day. Same as going to the bathroom, same as brushing your teeth. That's how you need to start thinking about food. If you are somebody that glamorizes and fantasizes about the cheesecake that you eat on a Friday night, you are going to need to let the pendulum swing the other way a little bit, and you are going to need to frame food in your mind as just something that's a function of your day, like other things that you have to do. Of course, this is made harder by age-old traditions and celebrations, and in recent years, the increased sort of convenience of food and popularity of dining out, home delivery service. It's really hard to make this distinction. It's really hard to truly see food as something that's there for your fuel when it's just thrust in our face and as accessible as it is nowadays. And this brings me on to the question, because I think this is a huge problem. Have we maybe forgotten, certainly in the Western world, why we eat now? Have we forgotten why we eat? Most of us don't know what it's like to be truly hungry anymore. A lot of people have never missed a meal. I'm not necessarily an advocate for intermittent fasting. There's a lot of people, though, if they had to do intermittent fasting, they would freak out. They would give up after an hour of trying, missing breakfast in the morning. They would give up because they are so used to a source of calories being readily available to them and actually making use of that. I think we've so forgotten why we eat now. We've so forgotten why we eat. If we can't even go one meal, if we can't skip one meal, it's not good to do regularly, but if we can't skip one meal from time to time, that's surely a sign that we perhaps don't have enough gratefulness around food. And we have totally commodified its use beyond just being something that fuels and nourishes. So when we eat, the taste of our food isn't associated with the relief of finally being able to eat after a period of excessive hunger, without getting all sort of Darwinian on this. If you have got an abundance of food all the time, and you have got all this artificially enhanced food, there is a huge lack of that sort of primal reward dynamic of actually going and getting food and actually then eating food and getting the relief of, oh, yes, I've now had a source of calories after a period of scarcity around food. So again, slightly Darwinian, but this is frankly how I see things. Food in the Western world is so available to the vast majority of us, sadly not everyone, but so available to the vast majority of us, that people don't get quite the right reward signaling when they eat because it's too abundant for them. So the question for you is, have you placed food on such a pedestal that you've forgotten why you eat, that it's now there for taste and it's now there for entertainment and it's now there for socializing, when really, when you look at what it actually does, the function it performs, it just needs to be there for fuel. Now, I think that's us. I actually had a few more notes, but I think that's us. I've gone over an hour. I've given it me all. It's 7 p.m. I've got other stuff to do. Ironically, I'm rather now hungry myself. So let's wrap up here. Hope you found this useful. Little mindset shifts and nuggets and gems from this, hopefully, that you can now go and inject into your thinking, into your weight loss and healthy eating strategies. So I hope this video truly was useful, and thanks for those that engaged with me whilst I was going here. Pleasure to have you here. Pleasure to have you watching the replay if that's you, if you're not joining me live. If you do want more one-on-one support putting this all together, and this deeply resonates with you, but you want to get into conversations with myself and deep dive this stuff to start coming up with new mental frameworks and perspectives on how you can actually fix your relationship with food, improve your mindset, get some accountability from me as well. You can check out the Vegan, Slim and Sustain program, my one-on-one coaching program, over at veganslimandsustain.com. I'll also link it down below, but that's veganslimandsustain.com. I'd love to see if you're a good fit for the program and see if I can help you, and then give you all the info. Okay, thanks all. Let's wrap up. See you soon. Hope you found this useful once more. Cheers.